Hey guys, welcome to the Sleepy Science. The sky above you is heavy with something unsaid. You lie still, eyes half closed, as the day's heat dissolves into evening hum. Out your window, or maybe in your mind, you see rooftops glowing under the dimming gold of dusk. Crickets begin their soft rehearsals in the grass, and a far-off dog barks at nothing in particular. Somewhere in the distance, clouds gather, whispering behind the curtain of the atmosphere. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it over there? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The evening doesn't just begin, it slowly emerges, like a shy thought. The world exhales. The sky doesn't darken all at once, but bleeds gently into shades of blue velvet. Somewhere, above all this calm, something ancient is starting to stir. You wouldn't notice it at first. The air is still, too still. There's that peculiar quiet that settles before a change, like nature holding its breath. You've probably felt it before, maybe during a summer trip to the hills, or sitting near an open window at dusk. It's as if the clouds are thinking, deciding. But what could a cloud possibly be thinking? Above you, nearly invisible in the thinning twilight, is a congregation of moisture and momentum. Warm air is rising from sun-baked asphalt, from the steam of the jungle, from your own warm breath. As it rises, it cools, condenses, and meets colder air waiting higher up. The warm and cold begin to talk, but this conversation isn't casual, it's full of tension. This is the hum before the storm. You drift upward in your imagination, floating above rooftops, over hills, until you're among the first brushstrokes of high-altitude cirrus clouds. Up here, the sky feels spacious, empty, timeless, but below something is building, slowly, methodically, like a lung preparing to gasp. Did you know a single cloudburst can release more water in an hour than some regions receive in an entire year? It's not just rain, it's the sky's full-body sob, the kind of release that even the most advanced satellites struggle to predict. That's because cloudbursts are emotional things. They aren't tidy, scheduled weather events. They're atmospheric breakdowns. And they usually begin, just like this, with a quiet, heavy sky and a pulse you don't quite notice until it's too late. In ancient times, people believed gods lived in the clouds, and when storms came suddenly, they imagined a divine quarrel, an argument spilling over in tears and thunder. A storm wasn't just rain, it was a mood, and in some way they weren't sit wrong. There's a moody intelligence to the way storms form, especially cloudbursts. They don't come with parades of warning clouds or polite lightning previews. They arrive abruptly, unapologetically, like the sky tripped and dropped a lake. One quirky fact: in the Himalayas, cloudbursts are feared so much that local legends describe them as mountain spirits weeping after centuries of silence. Isn't it strange that something so soft like a droplet can become so dangerous in numbers? Imagine trillions of those tiny drops, forming and falling all at once, collapsing air and gravity into one catastrophic handshake. You float in this thought, suspended in a growing unease. The heat hasn't broken yet, but you can feel it gathering behind the wind, behind the clouds, behind the silence. Nature is wound tight like a spring, and somewhere in the layers of the sky, an imbalance begins. A shift, a signal, a storm seed cracking open. You've likely heard the term precipitable water, the total amount of water vapor in a column of air above you. On cloudburst days, this value is off the charts. But the vapor isn't just there, it's waiting for just the right trigger, a jolt, a breeze, a chill, and suddenly the dam breaks. But not yet, not in this moment. For now, it sits still safe, still soundless. You continue floating, following the subtle cues of a changing atmosphere. Your body softens with the evening, and your mind gently unknots. You feel the edge of something enormous forming, a breath being drawn in the darkness above. Sleep tugs at your shoulders, but the sky is still holding its breath. This is only the beginning. You drift higher now, your body no longer bound by gravity or thought. It's like floating in a memory, the way the air felt the day before a great storm, thick, syrupy, almost too quiet to be normal. And somewhere far below, trees stand still like they know what's coming. The clouds are no longer light-hearted shapes to be named or traced. They are growing towers, heavy, serious, hungry things. Have you ever heard the term cumulonimbus? It's the scientific name for the cloud that brings thunderstorms. But the word itself feels like a spell, doesn't it? Cumulonimbus, like something whispered by an ancient weather witch. These clouds can grow up to 60,000 feet tall, twice the height of Mount Everest. You read that right. They are vertical monsters, climbing into the troposphere like atmospheric skyscrapers. And you're hovering beside one now. From here, it looks alive, like a slow explosion, pausing mid-blast. The edges are billowy, yes, but the center is dense, a churning, swelling beast of vapor and ambition. The temperature difference inside this cloud can be staggering. Warm, moist air near the base, icy, super-cooled water at the top. It's a battlefield of elements. And the pressure, mounting. This is how the sky holds secrets. You glide alongside it, mesmerized by the movement, like watching a lion breathe in the tall grass. There's power here. But there's also beauty. Soft greys that turn lavender with the falling light, blush tones near the bottom, and streaks of silver near the peaks where sunbeams try to pierce through. You wonder, how can something this beautiful be so destructive? It reminds you of people, maybe, of how calm faces can hide wild storms inside, of how a single outburst can break something irreversibly. Scientists call cloudbursts localized extreme precipitation events. But that phrase doesn't hold the weight of the real thing. It doesn't describe the way roads instantly become rivers, or how mountainsides peel away under the force. It doesn't explain how rain falling at more than 100 mm per hour becomes a kind of vertical flood. Did you know one cloudburst overlay in the Indian Himalayas dropped enough water in 30 minutes to change the entire topography of the region? The storm didn't just wet the earth, it rewrote it. And the causes, still debated. Most experts agree on the broad strokes: orographic lifting, where moist air hits mountains and is forced upward, excessive humidity, rapid condensation, but the exact moment of ignition? That's the mystery. One tiny shift in pressure, one gust, one molecule too many, and the sky tips. Some researchers even believe that micro-level turbulence, airflow invisible to our instruments, might be the true spark. The butterfly flapping its wings theory, but in reverse the sky inhales, and somewhere a hillside drowns. You begin to feel smaller as you float here, beside this towering mass of cloud, not afraid, just respectful, reverent, the kind of quiet you feel in a cathedral. A little absurd moment flickers across your thoughts. What if clouds had personalities? Would this one be a brooding poet, nursing heartbreak and thunder, or a volatile artist too sensitive to exist quietly? Your breath slows. The hum of sleep grows louder in your bones. You think of all the people on the ground who see only a darkening sky. They don't know what's brewing above. They don't see the updrafts, the columns of warm air surging into the cloud's belly, lifting vapor like offerings. They don't hear the distant electrical buzz of charge building within, atoms rubbing shoulders until sparks fly. And you wonder how many things in life are like this. Quiet storms, gathering inside people, invisible until they break. Below, a tree sways slightly. A cat darts under a car. Someone closes a window. The wind has changed. It sips colder now. You float beside the cloud like a ghost of curiosity, watching pressure and moisture flirt with disaster. The first drops haven't fallen, but you can smell it, can't you? That earthy scent, petrichor, the perfume of dry soil being touched by water. Even before the rain begins, the ground seems to anticipate it. And then, a flicker. Not lightning, not yet, but something inside the cloud convulses. A ripple, a rearrangement. The tipping point is near, and so you wait, suspended, safe in this dreamlike altitude, watching the sky hold its final inhale. You're not afraid, you're fascinated, pulled, and slowly your mind begins to quiet, like a child watching something bigger than understanding. You breathe in time with the wind. The storm is coming, but not yet. The moment lingers, pregnant with potential, heavy with pause. You remain hovering beside the cloud, which has now grown darker at its core. Not black, not yet, but a kind of bruised purple, like something sacred and wounded at the same time. The outer edges still gleam faintly with sunlight, rimmed in silver filigree, but the inside, oh, the inside has secrets. You're not just watching a cloud anymore, you're watching a decision. The sky, it seems, is choosing whether to hold or to release. And then it happens. One single drop falls. Not much, really, just a plummet of water from a staggering height. But when you're thousands of feet in the air, you realize how long the journey of a raindrop truly is. You follow it down with your mind. You imagine the weight it gathers as it falls, the shape it takes. It dances slightly on the wind. It speeds up, slows down, reflects the sun in its curve, and then, with the grace of inevitability, it lands softly, invisibly, on a leaf below. One drop, that sips all. But the cloud seems to notice. As if startled by its own vulnerability, it begins to tremble. Inside, a riot of motion, cold air crashes downward while warm air pushes upward in protest. The clash is fierce, messy, theatrical. It's like an opera inside vapor, a duel between temperatures. Every droplet that forms weighs down the cloud. Each weight shifts balance, and suddenly, something gives way. The downburst begins. You've heard of rainfall, but this is something else entirely. This is sky water in freefall. No time for gentle beginnings, no gradual patter. This is an explosion, a skyquake, a vertical river. The rain slams into the earth with such force, it feels like punishment. Within seconds, streets vanish, dry land becomes myth. Trees bend, animals scatter, and humans mostly look up in disbelief, as if trying to comprehend why the heavens are crying so hard. From above it sits strangely beautiful. The water sheets across rooftops, like a veil of mercury. Cars float briefly, then tilt. Gutters overflow. Drains gurgle in protest. The geometry of the city collapses into chaos. All straight lines become waves. You float, untouched, through this storm, and you think, this is what release looks like. Did you know that during some cloudbursts, rain falls at a rate of 300 millimeters per hour? That's enough to submerge an entire city block in minutes. In places like Cherrapunji, India, or the Himalayan town of Kedarnath, these bursts are almost mythical. They're not just weather, they're events. Stories passed down, nightmares remembered. But even science still whispers when it tries to explain why they happen. There are theories, of course, always theories. Some say it's because of atmospheric instability. Some blame wind shear. Others talk about convective uplift, how warm, moist air surges upward, condenses rapidly, and gets trapped by surrounding pressure systems. It's like filling a balloon too quickly. Something has to give. But the truth is, cloudbursts are deeply unpredictable. They arrive like emotions, sudden, intense, often inconvenient, and sometimes they vanish as quickly as they came. You smile a little, because doesn't that sound familiar? You've had days like that, where everything felt heavy, and then without warning, you cried or screamed. or laughed until you choked on your breath. Weather, it seems, is not so different from the heart. And then there's the thunder. Low at first, like a throat clearing, then louder. A subsonic growl that rolls across the sky like a giant turning over in bed. You don't hear it so much as feel it in your bones, in your spine, in the soft part behind your eyes. The lightning follows. It doesn't splash. It snaps. Brilliant white veins, spidering across the clouds, illuminating their structure like a body lit by X-ray. You glimpse for a moment the raw architecture of the storm, and it's glorious, terrifying, holy. You think of ancient people, how they must have interpreted storms as the wrath of gods. You can't really blame them. Even now, with all our satellites and Doppler radars, cloudbursts still humble us. They remind us that control is an illusion, that the earth and sky and water are not ours to command, that sometimes surrender is the only answer. A quirky fact floats through your mind. In 1970s Japan, some researchers tried to artificially induce rainfall by seeding clouds with silver iodide. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Weather, it turns out, doesn't like being told what to do. You admire that about it. And as you hover now above a city turning silver with rain, you feel that strange kind of peace that comes only after chaos has begun. The kind of stillness that lives inside the roar, a clarity that can't be found in quiet, only in surrender. The cloud above continues to pour its soul into the earth. But you float, dry, dreamlike, drowsy, because even the most violent rain sounds soft when you're listening from a safe place. The rain continues its monologue, a ceaseless percussion of droplets striking every surface like the tapping of infinite fingers on a hollow drum. You drift slowly now, not above the storm but through it. Each droplet brushes past you like the lightest touch of silk threads, cool then colder. The temperature around you dips, and the air thickens. It doesn't feel wet so much as dense, charged, alive. There's something in the atmosphere, something that makes your skin prickle and your breath deepen. You know it instinctively. This isn't just water falling from clouds. It's pressure, tension, memory, and then you notice it. The scent, that unmistakable smell of rain on dry earth. Tetrica. It's earthy, sweet, strangely metallic, like the breath of a sleeping giant who just awoke beneath the soil. Do you know what causes it? Tiny molecules called geosmin, released when raindrops strike the ground, especially after long dry spells. Bacteria, alive and ancient in the dirt, react to the moisture with joy, or perhaps alarm, and in doing so, they send a signal skyward, a chemical sigh, and you breathe it in like perfume, the planet's cologne. The storm grows stranger now. You pass through pockets of shifting temperature, one moment warm as exhaled breath, the next cool like a cave mouth. It's like the sky is exhaling unevenly, an anxious inhale, a startled release. This isn't just rain, it's a conversation in moisture and motion. Somewhere in the distance, a hilltop creaks beneath the weight of too much water. You can't see it, but you feel it. Roots loosening, soil slipping, a sigh in the earth's skin. Cloudbursts often cause landslides, or flash floods. In mountain towns, the two dance together like old lovers, clumsy, sudden, disastrous. The water carves new rivers where none existed. Stones roll like marbles, trees bow, crack, fall. But here's the odd thing, amid the chaos, everything feels slowed down. The heavier the rain, the softer your thoughts become. You watch a leaf swirl in a puddle for what might be an hour or a second. Time here is a spiral, not a line. A droplet lands on a spiderweb stretched between two branches. It doesn't break the web. It shudders, trembles, slides off. Resilience. And you wonder how many things in nature look delicate but are designed to endure. You pass a rooftop where someone is watching the sky. They don't see you. Of course not. You are somewhere between presence and dream, but you see them clearly. A child, maybe 8 years old, standing in pajamas with arms wide open, soaked, laughing. It's easy to forget, isn't it, that some people love the rain? That to them, cloudbursts are miracles, not threats. In places like Dubai or Las Vegas, where rain is as rare as silence in a city, people sometimes rush outdoors just to feel it. Entire families dance in alleyways. Umbrellas are abandoned. Showers become celebrations. And for a few wild minutes, everyone forgets to be afraid. You glide lower. The rain is thick here. Not drops anymore, but sheets, like veils pulled between buildings, shrouding them in motion. You pass a lamppost, flickering under the weight of water. The light blurs, bends, refracts. Rain doesn't just fall, it distorts. It plays tricks. A man rushes across a street, newspaper overhead, useless. A woman in a red coat spins, arms out, eyes closed. Her joy is private. You're just a witness. This moment isn't stet about science now. It's seps about sensation. The pressure of water on windows, the hiss of rubber tires slicing through puddles, the way every colour seems deeper when wet. Green's more alive, black's more endless. There's an old debate among meteorologists about the actual definition of a cloudburst. Some say it must drop over 100 millimeters of rain in an hour. Others argue that intensity matters more than duration, but you realize now the precise number doesn't matter. You know a cloudburst not by measurement, but by feeling. You know it by the breathlessness it causes, the awe, the ache. You drift sideways now, slicing through the storm like a gentle ghost, past rooftops and balconies, between curtains fluttering behind rain-streaked windows. You pass a cat watching the world from a windowsill, eyes narrowed, tail twitching. Even animals sense the tension in the sky, maybe better than we do. And somewhere, thunder growls again, closer this time, more urgent. Not angry, just awake. It stits a reminder. The storm is still choosing, still deciding how long to linger. And you? You still have stopped trying to predict. You just float, letting go, at last, of needing to understand everything. Because sometimes the mystery is the point. The thunder rolls behind you like a memory that's not quite finished speaking. It echoes, not just through the sky, but through your chest, as if your bones are hollow enough to hold sound. And maybe they are. The rain has lessened, but not stopped. It's more deliberate now, whole, like fingers drumming a thoughtful rhythm, less fury, more focus. You float lower, the dreamscape sharpening in its stillness. Beneath you stretches a valley carved by time, where ancient forests hold secrets beneath their wet, mossy skin. You settle gently into a glade between trees older than language. This forest has witnessed 1,000 cloudbursts. You can feel the memory of them in the bark, the soil, the way the underbrush seems to lean in and listen. Leaves shimmer with droplets. Each one is a tiny lens, holding a warped reflection of the storm above. And you too reflect now, not just on the science, but the deeper rhythm behind it. Why do cloudbursts happen here, in this forest, in this moment? The answer, as always, begins with heat. You remember earlier in the day, the sun had been relentless. It baked the earth, lifted moisture into the sky, where it waited, accumulated, loaded the clouds with weight and tension. But sometimes, the trigger isn't heat alone, it's terrain. In places like this, valleys, slopes, places where warm air is trapped and lifted quickly, you get convection. That is hot air rising violently, pushing the moisture up too fast, too thick for the atmosphere to keep up. It can hold it. And so, everything drops. This forest is a perfect stage for such a drama. Tall trees whisper updrafts, hills funnel air, and the sky becomes a dam with no choice but to break. You step softly across the forest floor, though your feet never touch it. You pass mushrooms glistening like alien satellites. A snail crawls across a slick rock, slow and fearless. Water collects in a small pool beside a log, where a frog watches you with what feels like ancient suspicion. A single drop falls from a leaf and splashes into the pool. Concentric circles ripple outward. You watch them and feel the metaphor land gently in your chest. One drop, infinite echoes. Isn't it what a cloudburst is? One decision in the sky, and countless consequences below. You pause under the dense canopy. Here, only the heaviest drops make it through. They fall with purpose, like punctuation at the end of a sentence you can't quite translate. You recall something curious. Ancient civilizations used to interpret sudden storms as omens. In Mesopotamia, a violent burst of rain meant the gods were displeased. In parts of India, they were signs of renewal, fertility, the sky blessing the soil in fast, furious communion. And here you are, caught in that same old story. Sky, earth, meaning. Scientists still debate how small-scale terrain affects cloudburst triggers. They know that mountains enhance them, but what about forests, river bends, cities? Some suggest urban heat islands can provoke mini cloudbursts, localized storms fed by concrete and steel radiating heat back into the sky. Others say it's more chaotic, less a science, more a symphony of probability. And you? You watch a squirrel dart between branches, its wet fur clinging close. It pauses, tail twitching, then leaps. Its trust in the branch is total. You realize something quietly profound. Nature doesn't resist the rain. It adapts. You step out again into a clearing where the storm is lighter, almost musical. The trees part above you. Through the gap you see the clouds, enormous, layered, glowing faintly from within, like illuminated cathedrals. Clouds, especially cumulonimbus, the big angry kind, can tower up to 15 kilometers into the sky. Inside them, updrafts surge at speeds of over 100 kilometers per hour. Water droplets freeze, fall, rise again. Each pass adds a new layer of ice. Hail is born like this, sculpted in chaos. But in a cloudburst, hail doesn't always form. Sometimes it's just raw, heavy rain, unfiltered grief from the heavens. You drift upward, rising through that gap, feeling the temperature drop again. Inside the cloud now, visibility vanishes. All is white, grey, pulse, and hum. It's warm in some spots, cold in others. Inside this structure, you're not sure if you're in a storm or a living organism. It feels alive. Did you know that the weight of water in a cloudburst can rival that of a passenger jet? Billions of gallons held for just the right moment, then dropped in less than an hour. You think of that weight and wonder, how does the sky carry so much? And how do we? You glide between vapor pillars and feel the static prickling around you. The air is electric, even without lightning. Your fingers glow faintly with some imagined energy. You realize you've stopped thinking in terms of seconds and started thinking in sensations. That sip's good. That means the storm is working. It's washing away the calendar, the clock, the insistence of everything needing to be now. You emerge again above the canopy. The rain has lightened, but your thoughts have deepened. You look below and see how the forest holds the storm, not as damage but as nourishment. Roots are drinking. Leaves are laughing. And somewhere beneath the soil seeds are stirring. It stits not just an end, it stits a beginning. That's the secret of a cloudburst. Destruction and rebirth are the same thing seen from different distances. You float there, between breath and belief, soaked in silence, wrapped in rhythm, no longer wondering what the storm wants, but simply accepting its company. You drift gently through the misty belly of the storm. The rain no longer feels cold or chaotic. It feels like a memory trying to remember itself, a whisper, a lullaby from above. Below you, the landscape softens. You are over highlands now, Jagged cliffs and rolling plateaus scarred by time and weather, the kind of place where winds don't just blow, they howl, where clouds pause, cling, and wait for something to break them open. And they do. Here, cloudbursts are not visitors, they're residents, regular, unruly houseguests of the mountains. You settle near a steep escarpment, where waterfalls are born mid-air, seemingly out of nowhere. The water pours over the edge, not like a river, but like a sky-wound leaking light. And it makes you wonder, why here? Why do these towering places seem to attract such celestial drama? The answer, like most things in nature, is a quiet layering of truth. You see, cloudbursts need more than just moisture. They need choreography. High-altitude regions, especially those with rugged vertical faces, create perfect environments for orographic lift. That's when moist air is forced upward by rising terrain, and as it climbs, it cools rapidly. Colder air cannot hold as much moisture, so the air, like an overfilled glass, spills. This is where the cloudburst is born, not in rage but in inevitability. You watch the process unfold in slow motion, warm, moisture-heavy air gliding up the mountainside, cooling, condensing, growing unstable, and then collapse. A sudden, thunderous gift from gravity. It sips not violence, it sits release. Something long held finally let go. You think of all the things you've held too long. Thoughts, regrets, words unsaid. Are they not clouds in their own way? Swollen and heavy with what you've carried, waiting for the right terrain inside you to let them rain. The waterfall beside you shivers with the echo of that thought. You sit near its edge, well, you float really, but it feels like sitting, and notice the spray around you catching light in prisms. Little rainbows arch between droplets, not the kind you point to and photograph, but the kind that you keep secret, personal, invisible to others. That's the thing about rain, it's always shared, but it's never experienced the same. You recall a curious scientific tidbit. No two people standing in the same storm feel exactly the same drops, because each raindrop has its own journey, formed from different vapors, nudged by different winds, warped by their own microscopic turbulence. In a single cloudburst, there could be millions, billions of these little wanderers, falling, dancing, disappearing, and yet somehow all part of the same event. You look down again and see something extraordinary. A small stone hut perched defiantly on the mountainside. Its roof is thatched, its windows shuttered, but it's still standing, drenched but proud. You imagine someone inside, sipping tea, listening to the storm drum its rhythms on the roof. And you think, what a strange and beautiful thing, to build a home where the sky often weeps. Maybe some of us are drawn to storms, not to escape them, but to live in rhythm with them. You float closer, as if you might catch a whiff of that imaginary tea. Maybe cardamom, maybe chamomile, maybe just the steam itself rising like a small cloud trying to return home. Another boom rolls across the peaks, not violent, more like a low reminder, a distant animal growling in its sleep. Scientists have long puzzled over the unpredictability of cloudbursts in mountainous regions. Models improve each year, but there's still a stubbornness in the sky, a refusal to be fully understood. Some speculate microclimates are the culprit, tiny zones of temperature and pressure behaving unlike their neighbours. Others blame the invisible dance of aerosols, dust particles, or the sheer randomness of wind trajectories. But maybe that sips the charm. Maybe we've not meant to predict the storm, just respect it. You rise again, gliding upward through a narrow wind corridor where air rushes between cliff faces like it's late for something. Your dream body tingles with every brush of wind, a shiver, but not from cold, from awe. And you remember this during some cloudbursts, rainfalls at rates of 100 millimeters per hour or more. That sips not rain. That sips a curtain. That's the sky deciding for just a moment. that it no longer wishes to float. You close your eyes, and the sound of water becomes a language, not words, just emotion, a fluid alphabet. And though you don't know what it says, you understand it anyway. Somehow, you feel the message. Let it fall. Let it flow. Let it change you. You drift lower again, beneath the shadows of the clouds, and let your awareness settle where earth and atmosphere become entangled. You're now in the warm belly of a valley, just after the storm has spoken. Everything around you is soaked. Leaves drip like ticking clocks. Rooftops glisten under new sunlight. And the rivers, they've become wild serpents uncoiling in silver fury. But here's the catch. This storm didn't come from the sea. It wasn't part of a weather system tracked days ahead. It wasn't announced. This was a local phenomenon, a moment of meteorological intimacy, and it happened not because the sky was angry, but because a very particular set of ingredients came together. Just so, a whisper of heat here, a rise of humidity there, a trapped pocket of instability, and then boom, it all collapses into sudden downpour. You hover above a small village nestled in the crook of the valley. The rooftops are made of red clay and tin, each one singing its own drip-drip lullaby. You can almost hear people inside lighting candles, stirring lentils, or simply sitting in silence, grateful for the sudden pause a storm brings. And now you ask yourself, how exactly does a cloudburst begin? It's not so much a single cause, it's a conspiracy of conditions. Cloudbursts typically originate from convective clouds, especially cumulonimbus ones, the towering giants of the sky that can stretch 10 to 15 kilometers high. Inside them, air rises like breath through a flute, fast, warm, full of potential. As that air rises, it cools, condenses, and builds layers upon layers of moisture. Water droplets grow heavy, ice crystals form, and electrical charges start to dance. But unlike regular rainstorms, in cloudbursts, these droplets aren't gently released. They're held tightly until gravity throws a tantrum, or perhaps until the cloud simply can't hold its breath anymore. Then, in a matter of minutes, the air column destabilizes, the vapor-laden ceiling collapses, and the rain falls hard, thick, fast. Not droplets, but walls. Not sprinkles, but small projectiles of sky. It feels sudden, but really, it was inevitable. You float inside such a cloud now, as it forms itself into something pregnant with purpose. The inside is not dark as you'd expect, but luminous, a silvery womb of water and light. Droplets cling to each other like secrets, not yet ready to be told. You reach out a hand. One droplet lands on your palm. It shivers like a tiny heart. And then you hear it. A soft sound, more vibration than noise. Like thunder warming up backstage, the cloud is beginning to buckle. Tensions rise, and then silence. Stillness. And finally, release. The first wave of rain rushes downward with startling speed. It doesn't trickle, it lunges. You follow it down, tumbling joyfully, like a drop yourself. You pass between trees, skim the sides of buildings, and splash into a growing pool that wasn't there 10 minutes ago. Its dip's magical, but also terrifying. Because cloudbursts don't just bring rain, they bring risk. You remember an old story, one of those whispered, local legends that still hold scientific truth. In 1970, the village of Lahore Spiti in northern India experienced a sudden localized cloudburst. The villagers spoke of it not in terms of weather, but as if the gods had spilled something. That storm unleashed over 250 millimeters of rain in a single hour. Entire footpaths vanished. Livestock was swept away, but oddly, the trees remained, as if they understood something, as if they were designed for exactly this kind of sorrow. And you realize now cloudbursts are not random. They are sensitive, emotional. They require precise triggers, a certain temperature gradient, a specific dew point. the absence of winds that might otherwise shear their momentum. Even scientists still argue about the exact mechanisms. Some claim it's about thermal instability. Others argue it's more about geographic entrapment, how terrain holds moisture in place. Still others whisper about aerosols and particulates playing unexpected roles in nucleating droplets. But maybe, like most important things, cloudbursts aren't fully knowable. Maybe they are the sky sip's impulsive poetry, a reaction not to logic, but to feeling. You look down again at the village. The rain is easing now. Steam rises from the roofs. Children peek out with wide eyes. Dogs shake their fur. A grandmother opens a window and throws seeds to the birds, even though none are flying just yet. It sept all so tender, and it reminds you for every terrifying flood, there are moments like this, quiet re-emergences, survivals, renewals. You drift over to a stone path that's been partially washed away. There, among the debris, a little wooden toy boat has lodged itself in the mud. Someone must have launched it just before the rains came. You reach down and flick it gently back into the current, and off it sails, toward whatever comes next. You continue floating above the softened landscape, and there's something different in the air now, lighter. The storm has passed, and the sky exhales, a long, deep sigh of release after holding in something too heavy for too long. Cloudbursts, in all their drama, never linger. They arrive unannounced, make a mess of things, and then vanish, leaving you wondering whether it really happened at all. And now you start to wonder what happens next, what's left behind after the sky explodes. Down below, the earth answers with silence, its own kind of reverence. The soil, once hard and cracked, now drinks deeply. You see the fine dust of summer turned into thick, dark mud. Small rivulets snake down hillsides, carrying with them forgotten seeds, hidden nutrients, and memories of things that used to live where the water now flows. Recovery has already begun, but in some places, so has chaos. Flash floods are the most dangerous echoes of a cloudburst, and they don't play fair. Roads vanish, bridges crumble, cars become boats, poor ones, but the strangest part, it's often sunny just a few kilometers away. You look over a ridge, there's a dry town basking in gentle sunshine, unaware that just over the hill, a storm briefly turned the world upside down. And this contrast, it seps unsettling. How can nature be so localized in its fury, so precise in its choice of target? That's part of the riddle. The topography of a region, its ridges, its valleys, its slopes, can all act like mood amplifiers. Mountains, especially, play a starring role. You drift toward one now, a steep green face of stone and moss. It's warm to the touch, but high above, cooler winds are still swirling, trying to decide whether to start something new. Mountains, you learn, can trap moisture. They block winds. They force air upward. And when hot, humid air is lifted rapidly up a slope, it cools, condenses, and yes, can explode into sudden rainfall, especially if that air already holds secrets it hasn't confessed yet. You're watching a slow-motion recipe, kind of recipe that doesn't always make sense, but when followed accidentally, produces chaos. Cloudbursts are rarely predictable with any accuracy. That's the frustrating part for scientists. Despite satellite imagery, Doppler radar, and a growing understanding of convective systems, the exact where and when of a cloudburst remains elusive. And that elusiveness, it sips what makes them haunting. You pause mid-air as a thought passes. What if that unpredictability isn't a flaw in our systems, but a feature of nature's design? Maybe cloudbursts are the atmospheric version of jazz, improvisation within a storm. A burst of weather that chooses its own timing, its own melody, and never repeats. You remember a lesser-known case from the mid-2000s. Tehran, Iran. A city surrounded by mountains. That summer, an isolated cloudburst triggered a mudslide that roared through a hillside suburb. It wasn't forecasted. It wasn't even raining downtown, but entire neighborhoods were rearranged. The survivors spoke not of terror but of sound. The roar, they said, came before the water, like the mountain was shouting. You float closer to a dry creek bed now. It's full of pebbles and broken branches but no water. Yet just hours ago, it was a churning torrent. This is the aftermath. The aftermath few people see. There's a strange beauty in destruction. Not because we enjoy suffering, but because in its wake, everything gets quiet enough to be heard again. A farmer walks the edge of his field, assessing the damage. Some crops are flattened, others stand tall, defiant. He kneels, presses his fingers into the soaked earth, and nods to himself. He's done this before. He knows the ritual. Another child picks up a stick and starts drawing circles in the mud, not caring about the ruined playground nearby. Children always play, somehow, even in wet socks. And you realize something important. Cloudbursts aren't just about rain. They're about timing, about imbalance correcting itself, about pressure building until there's no choice but to let go. Sound familiar? How many times have you held too much? How many thoughts have you stored in your chest, each one a droplet in the cloud of your mind? And then one day, without warning, you cry, or laugh, or shout, or simply stop moving for a moment. That sips your own cloudburst, your own release. Maybe storms aren't sect things to fear. Maybe they're reminders to let go before you're forced to. You drift further now, carried on a wind that still smells like petrichor, that sweet, earthy scent that only comes after the rain has stopped. It's oddly nostalgic. You think of open windows, of someone saying, "Smells like rain," of old books and damp towels and fresh ground. Some scientists debate whether petrichor is the smell of life returning or of life washed away. The answer doesn't really matter. What matters is that it always arrives after something intense. Just like you now, drifting quietly over a landscape changed, but not ruined. You're softer now, a little damp around the edges, maybe even ready to dry out in the sunlight again. But first, linger a while longer. The sky may still have more to say. You float downward now, descending from the cloud-kissed heights where chaos once brewed, gliding into the valley below. The world is damp, hushed and alive in a different way. You feel it in your breath, the crispness of washed air, the stillness of something that just exhaled after holding itself too tightly. There's a strange sense of ceremony in the way the world calms after a cloudburst, as if everything witnessed something sacred, or perhaps something unspeakable. You drift over rooftops slick with rain. Some shimmer in moonlight like wet stone. Others creak gently beneath the weight of soaked shingles. A curtain flutters through a half-open window. A dog barks once softly, then curls back into its soggy bed. People don't usually sleep well after a cloudburst. Not because they're scared, but because the air buzzes with something. Maybe it's leftover static, or maybe it's memory, moist and heavy, hanging in the lungs like unfinished stories. You hover near a power line. The hum is louder than usual, as if the wires are still trying to shake off the wet. Birds, confused and ruffled, chirp from safer spots. They remember, in the way creatures do without language, how skies sometimes betray their blue. And beneath all this, running quietly under the hum, the puddles, the damp garden gloves left forgotten, is a question: where does all that rain go? You follow a silver thread of runoff as it curves between streets, joins another and another. Soon it becomes a swollen creek, brown with soil and secrets. It carves through a ravine, its banks breathing and breaking in places, swallowing twigs and trash and yesterday's forgotten lunch wrapper. This is the next chapter, the movement of water. Cloudbursts are not final acts. They are beginnings of journeys you'll never fully trace. Raindrops that fell from a sky gone mad are now molecules on a pilgrimage toward rivers, lakes, oceans, or maybe a new storm entirely. One drop lands in a barrel beside a cottage. It will sit there for days, evaporating slowly, wondering if its destiny was cut short. Another drop filters through moss and stone, seeping underground, joining ancient aquifers that remember dinosaurs and the first laughter of mammals. Still others race toward the sea. You remember something curious. Water never dies. It just moves, transforms, travels, rests. And in that way, every cloudburst is a passport stamp, a sign that a billion particles are beginning again. Some will nourish, some will flood, some will rise again. This is where the hydrologists come in, the quiet guardians of the water cycle. They study not just rain, but where it goes. After all, the problem with cloudbursts isn't always the sky. It serps the ground that can sit to take it. Urban areas, with their concrete skins, can't absorb sudden deluge. That's why cities flood. The rain tries to nestle into soil but finds only asphalt, so it races elsewhere, faster, wilder. You pass over a flooded underpass. Pale lights blink beneath the surface. A curious cat balances on the hood of a half-submerged car, tail twitching. Somewhere nearby, a basement groans as water invades spaces it was never meant to touch. Engineers debate endlessly about drainage systems. Should we build bigger pipes, smarter gutters, more permeable surfaces? Others argue we need to think like water, not contain it but move with it, predict its mood swings, respect its habits. It's a soft kind of war, humanity versus hydraulics. And then there's the other debate, the one rarely spoken aloud. Should we let the land flood? Some ecologists argue that certain landscapes need to be soaked now and then, that swamps, wetlands, and even farmlands evolve to absorb excess, that our desire to control everything, every puddle, every stream may be what causes the worst damage. It seps a strange thought, isn't it, that maybe the flood is not the enemy. Maybe it's a long-forgotten rhythm trying to remind us how the earth breathes. You drift now toward a field that acted like a sponge. It's muddy, sure, but it's alive. Worms wiggle in delight. Frogs croak softly from fresh puddles. Even a fox pads through, paws splashing with each step, tail flicking like a metronome. This, you realize, is part of the beauty left behind. A rebalancing, a mess with meaning. And somewhere deeper in your sleepy mind, another truth sinks in. Every violent release, every cloudburst, emotional or atmospheric, is followed by rearrangement. Not repair, not return, but transformation. You think of the Japanese art of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, making the cracks part of the design. What if landscapes are like that too? What if the storm didn't break the world but helped it become more itself? Suddenly, even the flattened grasses, the twisted fences, the tilted swing set, all seem like brushstrokes on a canvas. You're only beginning to see. The camera pans wider. You're above it all again, like a dreamer halfway between REM and waking. The valley sprawls beneath you like a soaked painting, colours deeper, shadows softer, and through it all, a river carves its fresh path, glittering with moonlight and quiet defiance. This isn't set destruction. It's Stit's choreography. And you're still dancing with it. Somewhere between the rhythm of dripping leaves and the quiet churn of runoff, you notice something odd. Time feels slower. Not frozen, not stuck, but suspended. Like the earth itself is holding its breath, just a little longer than usual. Cloudbursts have that effect, not just on land and water, but on time itself. You imagine a pendulum swinging, steady, predictable, then a sudden gust throws it wildly off course. That's what cloudbursts do to the planet's schedule. They aren't part of the regular tick-tock of seasons. They arrive like uninvited guests, carrying stories from places you didn't expect to hear from tonight. And yet, they never truly arrive without warning. Scientists are constantly chasing those warnings. Satellites scan the heavens for dense cloud masses. Radar systems watch for build-up. Meteorologists whisper forecasts like ancient prophets with weather maps instead of scrolls. You remember a curious fact. In 2013, over 375 millimeters of rain fell in just 3 hours in Uttarakhand, India, triggering devastating floods. But cloudburst detection failed, not due to ignorance, but due to scale. You can't always catch a lightning strike before it flashes. There sips something humbling in that. You think about how hard we try to control things. We name storms, we assign alert levels, we build models that predict wind direction, and yet when a cloud burst happens, it laughs in the face of preparation. It's like nature's jazz, improvised, emotional, chaotic. And still, people try. You hover beside a weather monitoring tower perched on a remote hillside. It blinks like a lone lighthouse, silent, stoic, eternal. Inside it, instruments hum gently, measuring pressure, temperature, humidity, like monks keeping vigil for the divine. There's a story there too. In recent years, a field called nowcasting has emerged. It uses AI, real-time satellite data, and machine learning to forecast rainfall patterns in the next 3 hours, especially vital for places prone to cloudbursts. But even that has limits. Cloudbursts are often hyperlocalized, raining intensely on one hill while the next remains dry. It's like the sky picks favorites, whispering "not you, not today" to some while unleashing fury on others. You think about the randomness of that, about how some villages flood and others 5 kilometers away remain untouched. No clear pattern, no fairness, just the sky, choosing without explanation. It reminds you of life. Some things you prepare for endlessly never come. Others arrive without warning and rewrite everything. You drift through that thought, floating now above a mountain range wrapped in low mist. The clouds here are thick, bruised, swollen, heavy with intent, but they haven't burst yet. It steps a strange tension, this in-between. You hear it in the distant rumble, feel it in the charged air. This is what meteorologists call convective instability, a fancy way of saying the atmosphere is moody and might throw a tantrum. There's stits of beauty in this too. You think of it as the moment just before a symphony begins, bows raised, lungs full, silence stretching, and somewhere a droplet forms. Maybe the 10th millionth one, maybe the tipping point. It clings to a molecule of dust. Yes, that's how it begins. Rain always starts with dust. You find that oddly poetic. Even the purest rain needs a little imperfection to form around. And when enough of these droplets gather, when gravity wins, and the cloud can't hold its burden any longer, it begins again. But here's the strange thing. No one fully agrees on why some clouds hold, while others snap. It's not just about moisture content, or temperature, or pressure. It's about the subtle dance between all of them. And like any dance, sometimes the step goes wrong, and the sky forgets the choreography. That sips when you get a cloudburst. You descend into a classroom now, not in the real world, but in memory. A chalkboard still holds yesterday's equations. A teacher, soft-spoken, silver-haired, once explained latent heat, condensation nuclei, orographic lifting. But back then you didn't feel it. Now, gliding between raindrops and ruined gutters, you do. You see how clouds are like minds, how pressure builds in silence, how conditions align quietly, dangerously, and how release, no matter how violent, is sometimes the only option left. You pass through the halls of memory, a rooftop under which you once waited out a sudden summer downpour, a playground you saw flooded once, swing chains tangled like vines, a hillside in a documentary where villagers rebuilt again and again, because this is just what the mountains do sometimes. And you realize cloudbursts are not rare because the sky is kind. They're rare because the balance is delicate. Most days, the world holds itself together, but sometimes it can sit, and what comes after? That sips where the story turns inward. Because the aftermath of a cloudburst isn't just about cleaning mud and fixing roads. It's about reflection, about how quickly everything can change, about how nature holds no grudges, but also no promises. You arrive at a monastery now. Not a real one, perhaps, but a place your dreaming mind conjures. Bells chime gently in the moist air. Robes swish along wet stone. A monk pauses to watch the clouds retreat, hands folded in silent prayer, not for safety, but for understanding. Because isn't it that what we all want? To understand the sky, ourselves, the way storms form inside and outside, and perhaps to know that even if we can stop them, we can witness them. We can prepare, not just with sandbags and warnings, but with perspective, with stories passed down, with songs sung about the year the heavens opened, with lullabies that hum of thunder, not as terror, but as truth. You float above the monastery. A candle flickers in the window. The storm has passed here, but the story has not. The storm leaves behind more than puddles. It leaves impressions on soil, on memory, on the subtle geometry of breath. You float now over a landscape glazed in silver, the clouds thinning like old lace. The air is clean but too quiet. Stillness, you realize, can feel louder than chaos when it follows so suddenly. Everything feels rinsed. The leaves gleam. The roads shine like oil paintings. A crow hops from one wet patch to another, unsure if the world has reset or simply paused. And you, drifting above it all, wonder, what happens beneath the surface after a cloudburst? The water seeps in fast, far faster than soil was designed to hold. Roots panic, thirsty one moment, drowning the next. Seeds get flung far from their quiet plots. Ants scramble for new architecture. But deep below, the earth makes space. It absorbs what it can. The rest, it channels into groundwater veins, into storm drains if they exist, into carved channels that remember the ancient flow of forgotten rivers. And as the runoff begins to move, it tells its own story. You trace it like ink across a map from hillside to terrace to alley. You see it vanish into a culvert, then reappear miles away as a stream whispering secrets to reeds and frogs. You float with it. The water you follow is no longer violent. It's just moving. And with each meter it flows, it carries pieces of what it touched. Mineral traces, dust from the roof of a temple, pollen from a flower that bloomed moments before the burst. Cloudburst runoff is a kind of archive. It gathers and scatters. You recall a strange fact. In Ladakh, India, a single cloudburst in 2010 caused debris flows that moved entire boulders. And yet, among the chaos, a centuries-old statue of Avalokiteshvara remained untouched. How do you explain that? Is it physics, a fluke of topography, or does water, like memory, choose what to forget? Scientists try to answer these questions. They speak of erosional dynamics, of sediment load, of friction coefficients. But some questions don't want answers. They want presence. They want a witness. And that sips you now. You arrive at a rice field. It's submerged, rows of green barely peeking above water. The farmer stands at the edge, knee-deep, assessing. You see him exhale, not with anger, not quite with relief, just acceptance. He's seen this before. The sky gives, the sky takes, and always, the soil endures. You pause on that thought. The endurance of soil, it's been eroded, compacted, poisoned, paved, and yet it always wants to host life. Even now, after a cloudburst, you spot signs, a worm wriggling to safety, a shoot re-emerging, an unexpected flower blooming faster than it should, perhaps because the rain whispered, now. And then you notice something deeper still. The scent. That earthy, grounding aroma that follows rain. It has a name, petrichor. It comes from oils secreted by plants and soil microbes. But after a cloudburst, it's not just pleasant, it's profound. It smells like awakening. You breathe it in, and it triggers something old in you, perhaps a memory of childhood monsoons, perhaps something older, ancestral. Humanity, after all, has always been obsessed with rain. We've built entire calendars around its arrival. We've prayed, danced, feared, and celebrated it. You imagine an ancient ritual, a circle of figures in wet robes singing to the thunder, not to stop it, but to welcome it. Cloudbursts have long held spiritual significance. In some cultures, they are considered messages from the gods. In others, warnings, and in still others, acts of cosmic balance, returning water to land that has forgotten softness. In Peru, there are old stories of Upus, the mountain spirits, who unleash sudden rains to cleanse wrongdoings. In Japan, Shinto traditions speak of Ain no Tajikaro, the deity who opens the cave of the sun and lets the rains begin anew. And in your dream, the stories swirl with the clouds. You're no longer watching a storm, you're inside a fable. The rocks are listening. The wind carries verses. The water is no longer just water. It's intention, motion, memory. But even fables need physics. You dip into the scientific again, not because you need to explain it, but because the facts too are part of the poetry. Like this one, a single thundercloud can hold up to 500,000 tons of water. That's the weight of 100,000 elephants. And yet, it floats, suspended, defying expectation, until it doesn't. And when it bursts, those tons fall suddenly, almost all at once, stretching the limits of absorption, of architecture, of language. Which is why, after a cloudburst, people don't always speak. They assess, they repair, they stare at the sky, as if asking, why now? And you ask too. You wonder why some places are struck more often than others. Scientists are still debating the role of microclimates, of urban heat islands, of sudden shifts in land use. One theory suggests that deforestation in high-altitude zones creates ideal conditions for vertical cloud development, turning what would be a gentle rain into an outburst. Another theory blames global warming. More moisture in the air means more potential for violent condensation. A warming world doesn't always mean dryness. It means extremes, more flooding, more drought, fewer normal days. And you wonder, will cloudbursts become common? Will tomorrow's skies be angrier? Or are we simply remembering more storms now because they find their way onto screens, into data sets, into dreams? You leave the field, you rise higher again. The clouds above are soft now, sleepy, drained. You imagine them sighing, empty and innocent once more. It's quiet again, not the tense quiet from before, but the peaceful kind, the kind that follows understanding, or at least surrender. You drift onward toward the edge of something, not the edge of a map, but of a feeling, like the halfway point in a long lullaby. But you're not ready to wake yet. There's more to see. You move gently over rooftops, still glistening, droplets forming tiny prisms where the sun might return. But for now it holds back. The sky is pale, bruised, half-lit. There's a kind of hush that only follows intensity, like the stillness after a deep cry, or the silence left behind by laughter that shook the walls. This hush, the one you're drifting through now, feels both sacred and spent. Below, people emerge like cautious animals after an eclipse. The man sweeping his porch has a rhythm, like a meditation. Swish, swish. A child pokes a stick at a worm. Two old women speak over a fence, their words lost in the soft squelch of mud. Not just physically, though the wreckage can be real, but emotionally, spiritually. How does a neighborhood absorb that much sky? You wonder, how do communities feel a cloudburst? In rural Bhutan, it's said that a sudden storm is the soul of a mountain weeping. When it weeps too hard, homes get washed away, and when homes are lost, the people sing, not in mourning, but to remind the mountain of its own beauty. Where you drift, not every building made it through. A tin roof lies folded like a crumpled paper crown. A motorbike is half buried in gravel, yet the door of a Taya house is open and the scent of cardamom rides the air. You imagine that kind of grace now. Resilience is quieter than we think. It doesn't look like speeches or flags. It looks like a kettle steaming again after the flood, like a neighbour handing someone dry socks, like laughter, small, unexpected, when a shoe squelches louder than expected in the mud. There sips a word you think of kintsugi. You float onward and notice something strange. Some of the trees still glisten, but others don't. The grass on one side of a hill is flattened, the other side stands upright. The Japanese art of mending broken pottery with gold, not to hide the cracks, but to show them, to say, this broke, and it became beautiful because of it. Maybe towns are like that too. The rain didn't fall evenly. Cloudbursts often don't. They're hyperlocal. One study found that a village in Switzerland received over 100 mm of rain in 20 minutes, while a town just 3 kilometers away got none. Imagine the mood swings. It's almost comical, like the sky forgot how to distribute. A wedding soaked on one street, while another sunbathes. A traffic jam in flash flood chaos, while the next roundabout stays dry. But really, it's turbulence. Complex interactions between wind, terrain, and thermals, chaotic variables in a system that never quite repeats. It's why cloudbursts are so hard to predict, and why, even with satellites and AI, meteorologists still throw up their hands sometimes. One scientist likened forecasting them to trying to guess when exactly a pan of boiling milk will spill over. Because yes, sometimes the universe really does act like a forgetful cook. That makes you smile. And yet, within days, people were rebuilding, deliveries resumed, grandmothers swept their stoops again. You remember how many cloudbursts catch even modern cities off guard? In 2021, Zhengzhou, China saw over 200 millimeters of rain fall in just an hour. Subway tunnels flooded. Streets became rivers. Cars floated like paper boats. Maybe that sips what makes humans incredible. Not that we can prevent every storm, but that we rise and pour the tea and move forward with shoes still damp and hearts still open. The sea stretches like brushed silk, calm but watchful. A few gulls hover above fishing boats, wings twitching in little mid-air prayers, and beneath the surface of the bay the land tells its own stories. You drift now toward a coast. When heavy rainfall meets the ocean, it creates freshwater lenses, temporary floating pools of lighter water that ride the salt until they're mixed in. They affect marine life. Some fish seek them out, others flee. Even plankton reacts, blooming wildly or dying suddenly, depending on the chemical cocktail the rain brings. Because cloudbursts don't just shape hills and fields, they shape the sea. And sometimes these bursts carry more than water. Runoff brings sediment, fertilizer, debris. After a particularly strong cloudburst, coastal zones can become clogged with silt, choking coral reefs or triggering algae blooms. Like a message in a bottle, only it sits nutrients and chemicals instead of paper, and the message reads, "We set her connected." It's strange to think that a storm on a mountain can change the flavor of the sea days later. Everything is. You, lying still now in your blanket. The rain that fell on a faraway village last night. The crab adjusting its path on a reef because of that very rain. A shiver runs through you, not of cold, but of cosmic timing. You consider a strange question. If cloudbursts are the sky remembering, what does the ocean remember? There's a tale from the Pacific Islands, Micronesian navigators who could read waves like pages. They knew by the rhythm of the swell when a distant island had experienced rain. The water told them. Could you learn to listen like that? You let your ears soften. The imagined ocean sounds blend into your real-world hum. Maybe a fan, maybe distant traffic, maybe silence. But somewhere in that soundscape, you can pretend the water is whispering. I felt the rain too, their roots tangled like calligraphy, holding the line between land and sea. They thrive on this chaos. Their soil gets recharged by floodwaters, even when others fear them. Crabs scuttle, egrets stand still as statues. And now you float over mangroves. One mangrove leaf trembles and drops a bead of water, finally, long after the rain has stopped. That's what these trees teach. They wait, they hold, they drink in the drama and turn it into life. Patience. Not with fanfare, just a soft nudge, a curtain pulling back, and suddenly, colour returns. The greens become warmer, the shadows gain edges, a rainbow might appear or not. The world doesn't always perform on cue. Back inland, the sun finally breaks through, but the warmth returns, and with it, a strange feeling, gratitude. For the storm, for the clearing, for the fact that you are here, bearing witness. You pass a mirror-like puddle in the road. A small bird pecks at its surface, sending out ripples that stretch like threads across time. You wonder, again, about causality. Did the storm cause something in you to shift? Did watching the world bend and unbend awaken a gentleness, a flexibility you had forgotten? You breathe. The air is different now. There's less weight in your chest, more space behind your eyes, a quiet. And in that quiet, the story continues, slowly, gently, like water soaking into the roots of your own awareness. There's more ahead, but for now, you simply float. As you drift further, the world beneath grows smaller, not physically, but emotionally. The chaos recedes, the urgency fades. What's left is the rhythm of breath, the slow return to self. You're no longer the storm watcher. You're the calm after, the witness of quiet miracles. A woman hanging washed clothes on a line, laughing to herself. A boy balancing barefoot on a low wall, arms stretched like wings. A riverbank, previously ravaged, now glittering with dragonflies, nature's unofficial cleanup crew. Time feels slower here, or maybe truer, measured not by seconds but by heartbeats, footsteps, glances exchanged. And in this suspended hush, you notice something else. Your mind has stopped racing. The looping thoughts, unfinished tasks, distant worries, self-critiques have gone silent like birds at dusk. Not gone forever, but resting. You stir not fixing anything right now. You stir just being, and that sips more than enough. This is the afterglow of insight, the low hum of understanding that doesn't need to be spoken. Cloudbursts don't ask for interpretation. They arrive, they overwhelm, they leave. And yet, they carve rivers into rock. They teach resilience by example. They show beauty in impermanence. So do moments like this. This quiet. This breath. This moment. Maybe this is what the rain was always meant to wash away. Not just the dust on streets or leaves, but the weight on your spirit. The assumption that peace needs to be earned. That stillness is unproductive. That you must always be doing. No. Sometimes you just need to float. To be the puddle reflecting the sky. To be the branch that held firm. To be the softness that follows intensity. You are not broken by the storm. You are shaped by it. You are the gold in the cracks, the silence after thunder, the green that rises stronger than before. And when you return, because soon gently you'll bring this stillness with you, in the way you listen, in the way you pause before speaking, in the way you look at clouds not with fear but with awe. So stay for one more breath. And then, when you're ready, return, not to the storm, but to the self, rested, reclaimed, reconnected. And just when you think the sky has nothing more to give, you feel it, something subtle, a kind of drizzle, not from above, but from within. Raindrops made of memories. They trickle down the walls of your mind, gentle and cool. Moments you thought you'd forgotten shimmer suddenly into focus. Half-dreamed afternoons, the hush of a childhood storm, the smell of wet earth and soap. Each one lands with the lightest splash. There's your mother's voice calling you inside before the downpour. There's a porch swing, moving slightly, even after you've stepped away. There's a dog curled under a bench, its eyes tracking the sky, as if it knows something you don't. You let them pass. These memory rains, because unlike flash floods, they don't drown you, they soften you. They remind you of what the brain sometimes skips, but the body remembers. How rain slows time, how people huddle closer, how laughter sounds different under tin roofs. You don't have to do anything with these memories. That's the beauty of it. Let them fall. Let them shine briefly on the skin of your awareness, and then vanish into your emotional soil, feeding something deeper. You've probably never realized how many kinds of rain exist. Not just meteorological, but emotional, cognitive, spiritual. The type that falls when a dream ends. The one that starts when a goodbye never finishes. The sudden mist when you laugh so hard, your eyes water. All of these are cloudbursts of a different kind. And tonight you set learning to welcome them. No umbrella, no hurry, just presence. And somewhere, out of reach but not imagination, a bell tolls quietly in the fog, a reminder. Even memories you thought you lost are never truly gone. They're simply waiting for the right kind of rain. By now you're tuned into something deeper, a pulsing rhythm beneath the chaos of a cloudburst. At first you mistook it for randomness, but now as you drift further you feel it, a secret beat. It isn't musical, not exactly, but it moves like music, structured chaos, layered time signatures, rising tension, falling resolve. It's the rhythm of storms, the way lightning always pauses before striking, the way thunder waits its turn, the way winds crescendo before they break into stillness. You realize that storms don't arrive to destroy. They arrive to reset. Your breath syncs with it. Inhale on the wind, exhale on the silence that follows. You begin to feel like part of the system, like the storm and your body are having a quiet, ancient conversation. Somewhere, scientists discovered that atmospheric pressure changes can influence mood, and that low-pressure systems, like those before a cloudburst, make people feel sleepy, or strange or reflective. It sips not just the rain that stirs you, it sips the pressure. And what is life, really, if not a series of pressures, followed by release? You think of tidal rhythms, like the menstrual cycles, of brain waves, of circadian loops, of the deep-sea creatures who glow only when the current hits just right. You wonder, is the cloudburst also following some rhythm I can't hear? And if so, does my life have a rhythm too? Maybe the hard days, the overwhelm, the moments where everything feels like too much, they're not signs of failure. Maybe they sip through crescendos. The sky builds to its moment, not to punish but to breathe. And afterward, calm. You smile softly as this thought brushes against you like fog. This storm you followed for hours isn't just weather, it's a mirror. And somehow, through the roar and the rush, you hear something else. Your own rhythm. It's been there all along. A little offbeat, a little weird, but beautiful. The storm is fading, not abruptly, not dramatically, just slowly folding into itself. Like a great cosmic animal settling down after a long stretch. The clouds no longer look angry, only tired. Their edges blur, their bellies sag, and the colours fade into gentler hues. And you feel that same surrender inside yourself. The roar becomes a murmur, the wind a whisper. Raindrops fall slower, heavier, like tears no longer sobbed, but remembered. Above you, the sky exhales. It steps strange to think of it sleeping, this endless canopy we so often call awake. But now, watching its muscles soften and its breath stretch long, you feel certain the sky sleeps too. Did you know that high above Earth's surface, even jet streams, the mighty rivers of wind that steer storms and weather, ebb and flow like dreamers? They oscillate, they spiral, they drift. Not aimless, but not always purposeful either. A bit like you, a bit like us all. And then there's the odd fact that thunder can travel for over 10 miles, depending on the air's temperature. You wonder, how far does a dream travel? Does this storm's memory echo into someone else's night? 10 miles away, 10 years from now? Maybe. Some scientists argue that cloudbursts aren't even a real type of weather, that they're just particularly intense rainfall events, exaggerated by terrain and timing. But if that's true, why do they feel so different? Why does this feel different? Maybe because it isn't set about science anymore. It's seps about story. You're no longer just learning about the storm. Yusep walked inside it. Yusep sat with its secrets. Yusep let it wash away the static noise and leave only what matters. The quiet rhythm of sky and skin. Your pulse. The hush after awe. Now, after the sky has stilled and the wind holds its breath, you begin to hear the world again, not in shouts but in whispers. A droplet taps on a leaf with the delicacy of a fingertip. A distant bird calls once, then chooses silence. Somewhere a tree creaks, not from strain but from memory. You tilt your head. The forest, or perhaps a garden, exhales around you. Earth sighs after its deep wash. Everything smells greener now, wetter, like the planet just had a long cathartic cry and is finally lying back in bed, eyes closed, still sniffling. You know that smell, petrichor. Coined in the 1960s by 2 Australian researchers, it's that rich, earthy perfume released when rain hits dry soil. The scent comes from geosmin, a compound produced by bacteria that live in the ground. Isn't it lovely to know that even the tiniest things, microbes too small to see, celebrate the rain with fragrance? You wonder if raindrops have perfume. What does thunder dream in? You sit beneath a dripping tree, listening as the storm's energy disperses through the leaves. It's like the branches are passing secrets between them, secrets too slow for language, too wet for paper, too old for your understanding. Still, you listen. There's something timeless in the way water meets root, a covenant, a ritual older than stone. You are present for it now, like a guest who stumbled into the back of an ancient temple just as the ceremony begins. And the temple, it's mossy. It's made of bark and silence and time. One curious tidbit: the pattern of rainfall on leaves creates different rhythms depending on the species of the tree. Oak leaves slap, ferns tap, needle pines whisper. It sips an orchestra. And here you are, front row seat. The world is reassembling, not rushing, not shouting, just slowly clicking its bones back into place. You feel a bit like that too. You have heard the idea before: water remembers. It flows, it erodes, it nourishes, but it also carries echoes, not like a recording, no, but more like a soul dragging a long, silken train of history behind it. You watch a tiny stream forming in the aftermath of the burst. It winds through gravel and root, carving the soft earth as though retracing a forgotten path. You place your fingers into it. Cool. Instantly, you're connected to something impossibly vast. This very droplet may have once fallen on the shoulder of a woolly mammoth, or kissed the lip of an ancient terracotta jug in Mesopotamia. That sip's not romanticizing. It sips science. The total volume of water on Earth doesn't change. The same water moves through endless cycles, evaporating, condensing, pouring, soaking, trickling, freezing, thawing, evaporating again. What falls on your forehead tonight could have once quenched Cleopatra's thirst or rippled in a dinosaur's footprint. Water does not die, and in that stream you sense time, not clock time, but a rhythm so old it moves like a heartbeat you can only feel when the rest of the world holds still. There sips a question here, a beautiful one. Do you remember the water, or does the water remember you? Scientists still debate the memory of water molecules, not in the poetic sense, but in the structure of hydrogen bonds and the controversial theories behind homeopathy. Most mainstream researchers reject the idea that water can store information beyond a fleeting molecular dance. yet the fascination remains. Why? Because the idea touches something primal, something we've always felt while staring into the ocean or hearing rain on a tin roof. That water knows, that it's seen things, that when it flows past us it whispers of elsewhere. And tonight your ears are finally quiet enough to hear it. You lean closer to the stream, tracing the way it carries a leaf, then nudges a pebble, then vanishes beneath a patch of moss. It steps a messenger, and you stir the message. The sky is not just weather, it steps story. You lie back again, the clouds slowly rebuilding above you, cotton castles on a pale canvas, but now you see more than vapour and light. You see the ancient carvings of our collective imagination, etched in the heavens since before written language. People didn't yet always have science, but they always had storms. Cloudbursts were omens, punishments, blessings. Some cultures believed that sudden explosive rains were tears from gods, or even a moment when the veil between worlds briefly thinned. In parts of the Himalayas, villagers still speak of sky spirits startled awake, whose weeping lashes the earth. You smile because part of you still wants that to be true. Even now, with Doppler radar and meteorological algorithms, we name hurricanes, we chase tornadoes, we obsess over weather maps with a kind of awe bordering on reverence. There sips poetry in that. And there's a reason ancient humans mapped the stars and skies with as much urgency as they did the land, because the sky moved them. It still does. You remember a fact. The word disaster comes from Greek, dis meaning bad and aster meaning star. A bad star, a misalignment in the heavens. That's how deeply we've always connected celestial rhythms with earthly fate. Even now, scientists use satellites like TRMM and GPM to track rain patterns and understand cloudbursts. We map rainfall from space, trying to read the modern sky like an ancient oracle. And yet, we still don't fully grasp it. Cloudbursts remain partially unpredictable because nature holds its own secrets. Terrain, humidity, temperature, microbursts, and sheer chaotic energy all dance together in a choreography too complex for our current models to always catch. That sip's okay. Mystery has always been part of meaning. You think of this. The same sky that inspires scientific models also fuels bedtime stories, from Norse thunder gods to African rain spirits to Japanese rain-making rituals. We've wrapped the sky in myth for millennia. Why stop now? So you keep watching, not just for knowledge, but for something older, wonder. Because in this moment between dreams and raindrops, you are both scientist and stargazer, meteorologist and mythmaker. And the clouds, once feared for their sudden violence, now seem gentle, as if they know you, set, listening. By now, you can feel the hush. It's not just silence, it's after silence, the kind that only comes when the skies have emptied themselves, and the air holds its breath. Every leaf glistens, every rooftop shines, the earth steams softly, like it too is exhaling. You lie still, and the world slows around you. This is the moment no weather map can show. The feeling after a cloudburst. The paradox of something so sudden leaving behind such peace. Tiny rivulets still trickle through the cracks in the street, carving their paths with purpose. A single bird calls out, a sound of relief perhaps, or celebration. Above you, the clouds begin to part, reluctant but fading, like actors exiting a stage after the final act. And you, quiet observer, are still here, unchanged and yet completely changed. Let's think about this. The average cloud weighs over 1 million pounds. 1 million pounds of suspended water, drifting above your head, held aloft by nothing more than temperature and motion. And when conditions tip just slightly, that weight releases. Just like emotions sometimes do, a cloudburst is more than weather. It's a kind of catharsis. The atmosphere builds, holds, strains, and then lets go. Not out of anger, but necessity. because the sky too needs to weep. You begin to realize something. Everything in nature is a rhythm. Build, break, rest, rebuild. Even storms have heartbeats. And maybe that's why you feel so calm now, not because the rain stopped, but because you understand it better. You lived with it, watched it, breathed through it. You stir no longer just under the sky. You are of the sky, and in some quietly absurd corner of your mind, you wonder, what if cloudbursts are the universe's way of resetting its mood? What if every downpour is the cosmos pausing to cry? And what if that's okay? You think of the phrase the calm after the storm. People often say it with relief, but perhaps it deserves reverence too, because this calm isn't empty. It's full of moisture, memory, meaning. As the last drops evaporate, the pavement smells alive. That scent petrichor is actually plant oils and soil chemicals reacting with water. It's the perfume of healing. You close your eyes. The clouds above, the ones you've followed for hours now, are drifting toward another horizon, toward another sleepless soul, toward another question waiting to be asked. And you sit ready to rest. Because even as we chase explanations, some things are meant to be felt more than understood. Like storms, like sleep, like this quiet moment you sit in right now. And so here you are, suspended in the gentle stillness that follows every storm, the world softened. The pulse of the rain now only a memory. No more thunder, no more tension, just the long, slow exhale of nature after release. You've traveled through vapor and pressure, myth and science, wonder and awe, from ancient sky legends to modern cloud tracking satellites, from mountain tops where monsoons awaken to the quiet place where your heartbeat aligns with distant droplets. Time has stretched, and now your breath is deep and even, like a river smoothing its stones. Let go now. Let go of the day's static, the jagged little worries, the unfinished sentences in your mind. You stir not alone in this calm. The sky too has fallen silent with you. Above you, stars reclaim their seats. Below you, the ground dries in slow contentment. And inside you, a quiet knowing that storms may come, and sometimes they must, but so does this, the soft, steady rhythm of peace after rain. So drift now, through clouds that don't need to burst, through dreams that whisper, not roar, and into a sleep shaped by water, wonder, and the wide open sky. Sweet dreams.